It's late. You've dimmed the lights. Maybe you're already lying down. Before we begin, take a moment, like subscribe, and let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? That always helps me picture who you are before we break you, not kill you. No, that would be too kind. Tonight, we are not interested in death. We're interested in what comes before death. When your mind is awake, when your body still twitches, when you can feel everything, you will not be a spectator tonight. You are the accused. And you're about to discover exactly why you wouldn't survive medieval torture. You hear the knock at night. It's never good when they knock at night. You don't open the door. Not yet. You're already on the floor, frozen beside the hearth, bare feet pressed against the stone to feel if it's real. Your breath catches. Your chest tightens. You haven't done anything wrong. You swear it. But they knock again. This time, heavier. 3 fists, not 1. You could run. The back alley is open. The pigsty, low enough to leap over. But if you run, you're guilty. And if you're guilty, they won't just drag you in. They'll strip you naked in the street and take their time. So you open the door. 3 men, town guards. One of them has a woolen hood soaked in wine. He's drunk, or at least pretending to be. Another holds a long wooden stave. The third, the one in front, simply says, "Your name." You nod. You don't ask why. Because in your time, you don't ask questions. You answer them. They don't beat you, not yet. They just tie your wrists, twist the rope until your elbows touch, and march you through the mud, barefoot, no time for shoes, toward the stone building at the edge of town. The auditorium, they call it, the inquiry hall. But you've heard other names for it. The place with the screams. The walk is silent, just squelching muck underfoot, and the occasional flicker of torchlight. Your heart pounds like a rabbit's. You're sweating. You're praying, not because you believe God will save you, but because it's what people do when they've run out of plans. You know what's coming. Your cousin was taken last winter. She came back, eventually, walking with a limp, missing 3 teeth, and unwilling to speak unless her hands were clenched so tightly. Her knuckles turned white. No one asked her what they did. You all knew. They don't take you to a dungeon. That's too clean, too cinematic. Instead, you're brought to a low-ceilinged stone room that smells like blood, straw, and piss. The walls sweat. Candles flicker behind iron cages, and in the center, lit like a stage, is the table. Not a table with food, not a table with parchment. This table is stained black. It has straps at all 4 corners, and under it, a pulley. They untie your wrists. For a moment, you feel relief. Then you see the hooded man winding a crank. You're stripped to your undergarments. Your limbs are stretched and locked in place. You try to remain calm, but your teeth are already chattering. And then, without ceremony, they begin. Your shoulder is the first to pop. The sensation is unlike anything you've ever felt. Not stabbing pain, tearing, the feeling of your own body disobeying itself. Your breath comes in gasps. You beg, you confess to anything. You name people you've never met. They ask you questions, but you don't hear them. Your knees give, but they can't. You're tied down. So instead, your hip socket slips, just a little, and white-hot agony floods your side, like a boil bursting inside your flesh. Still, you're not allowed to pass out. They're careful about that. They pour cold water over your head, force your eyes open with grease, whisper things in your ear about the devil, your mother, the girl you kissed once behind the baker's stall. You're not even sure what you're accused of anymore. Witchcraft? Theft? Blasphemy? It doesn't matter, because guilt has nothing to do with pain. This isn't punishment. This is proof. Pain is the evidence. Your scream, that's their justification. And your silence? That too. Hours pass. Or is it days? You don't know. Your arms are twice their size now. Your lips are cracked. You can taste your own blood, thick and metallic like rusted iron. You would confess to anything just to make it stop. But here's the part most people don't understand. They're not trying to kill you. They want you alive. Useful. A living body breaks better than a dead one. And the breaking, that's the whole point. You wake in straw. Not a bed of it, a pile soaked through with someone else's urine. Your arms are slack, shoulders numb, lips split, breathing hurts. Every inhale scrapes like gravel down your chest. You're not in the chamber anymore. Someone dragged you to a side cell. There's no window, no light, except for the oily flicker of a dying lantern, swinging slightly from a chain overhead. You think about sitting up, but your legs don't respond. You blink and blink, willing your vision to return. One eye swollen shut. The other stares into a haze of smoke and stone. You whisper something. A name, a prayer, but the words don't come. Only a hoarse gasp. That's when you hear it. Not words, not footsteps. Just a click. A soft metallic click in the darkness. Then another. You freeze. In your time, there are only a few things that sound like that. Locks, gears, metal tools being prepared. He's not rushing. He knows you hear him. That's part of it. The waiting, the dread. You think maybe this is it. The final thing. You're going to die. But then the door creaks open, and you see what's waiting. It's not death. It's worse. A wooden frame, shaped like a triangle, low to the ground and slick with dark stains. At the top, a narrow groove lined with jagged glass and broken pottery. You recognize it. The Judas cradle. A man in a leather apron beckons. You shake your head. It doesn't matter. They lift you, 2 guards, one at each arm. You don't even flinch anymore. Pain is constant now, like background noise. They don't explain anything. They don't need to. You're naked by the time they reach the device. You're trembling, not from modesty, from memory. You've heard stories. People don't walk right after this. Some don't walk at all. You're placed above it. Your legs are pulled apart, ankles tied to weights. Your lower body begins to descend. The point presses up. You clench, scream, twist. They lower you anyway, inch by inch. Gravity does the work. It doesn't puncture, not yet. The point presses inside, but not enough to kill. Just enough to break, to tear. You're not sure when the screaming stops. Maybe your throat gives out. Maybe your mind blanks. You leave your body. That's the only way to survive it. You float above the room, watching yourself twitch and hang like meat on a hook. Hours pass. They hoist you off, not to free you, no, just to start again. They ask if you're ready to confess, but the truth is, you'd confess to being God himself, if it meant they'd stop. They come for you before dawn, not to torture, not this time, not yet. This time it's the Inquisitor. You don't see his face at first, just the sound of his boots on the wet stone, the scent of cloves and sweat, the click of his rosary against a leather belt. When he speaks, it's soft, measured, a voice that doesn't shout because it never needs to. He asks your name, you give it. He asks again, you give it again. He stares at you for a while, like he's measuring your soul for a coffin. Then comes the question, not what you did, what you believe. Do you believe in God? You nod. Too fast. He asks, which God? That's the trap. You stammer. The God in heaven. Wrong. There are heretics who say the same. Cathars, Bogomils, Lollards, pagans who borrow Christian names. So he leans forward and asks again, which God? The God of Rome? The God of the Pope? The God of the Lamb, or the secret God that whispers to you at night? You say nothing. That's better than the wrong answer. He smiles, not kindly. He's already decided what you are. But he likes the theater. He likes watching you squirm under questions sharpened like razors. Then he mentions your neighbor, old woman, sharp nose, white hair, always watching from her doorway. Said you spoke to a black dog 3 nights in a row. Said she saw you leaving milk by the roots of an elm. Said your bread rose too fast, or didn't rise at all. Doesn't matter. The Inquisitor doesn't need evidence. He just needs a pattern, a feeling, a story he can sell to the faithful. He leans in close, so close you can see the crack in his lips, the way his eyes don't blink, and he says, "The devil rarely shows himself outright. He prefers proximity." Then he opens a ledger. Inside, names. Dozens. Some crossed out, some not. Yours is the newest. He asks you to sign it. Not for confession, for inventory. You're part of the system now. A case, a file, a soul in the process of correction. You refuse, not from strength, from confusion. You still don't understand what they want from you. That's when he gestures. The guards lift you again. You're dragged to another chamber. Different this time. Smaller, more intimate. Candles set in iron holders, chains dangling from ceiling beams like vines, and in the center, a brazier, glowing, orange hot. You want to scream, but there's no strength. The Inquisitor speaks again, almost bored. The fire will not burn you, it will reveal you. A figure appears, a thin man, face hidden beneath a linen veil, carrying a bucket of iron rods. You know what's next. The glowing tongs, the branding iron. Not to mark you, not yet. First, to test, to touch, to prod. Your feet are bare. So are your thighs. The first kiss of iron comes to your arch, not pressed, just laid there. The hiss is soft, but your reaction is violent. You flail, you scream, you kick. That earns you a slap. The Inquisitor doesn't tolerate disrespect. The second iron is longer, curved like a shepherd's hook. They press it behind your knee. Flesh bubbles, skin peels. The pain doesn't scream this time. It howls. You beg. You speak in tongues. You confess to things that don't exist. Flying dreams, shadows at the foot of your bed, the time you thought you heard a voice in the wind. They nod like it's enough. It never is. The third iron is for the face. You cry. You piss yourself. You pray it's a bluff. But the veil man doesn't bluff. He presses the hot metal to your temple. Not enough to kill, just enough to sear. You will never look the same again. That's the point. The Inquisitor nods. The guards take you back to your cell. Your skin stinks. Cooked meat and shame. You aren't sure who you are anymore. They've begun to take that from you. And they're not finished. Sleep becomes something else. Not rest, not even escape. It's just darkness between waves of pain. Your body has become a map of agony. Every breath travels through scorched nerves and shattered joints. You lie awake with your eyes closed, because even blinking hurts. Your face is no longer yours. You can feel where the iron touched, where skin peeled and stuck to metal, where your body tried to scream through flesh. You wonder if you're still recognizable. You wonder if that matters. The cell is quiet, too quiet. They've taken others. You hear them sometimes. Screams in the night. Please. Prayers. Once laughter. Brief, high-pitched, and then nothing. You try to count the days. You lose track after 2 or 10. There's no sun here. Only the drip of water from stone, the shuffling of rats, the soft breath of mildew growing on your own clothes. Hunger claws at you. But worse than hunger is thirst. Your mouth is dry, tongue like leather, lips cracking with every swallow. When they bring you water, it's filthy. But you drink. You always drink. You drink from a corpse if it gave you 1 second of relief. Then comes the new sound. Wooden wheels, chains. You recognize it before you see it. The rack. It enters like a monument, pushed by two men with arms like barrels and eyes like stone. This one isn't in the main room. It's in your cell. They don't need a crowd anymore. They've already broken the parts of you that would scream for help. This is for something quieter. You beg, not because you think it will work, because it's all that's left. They nod like priests hearing confession. They lift you by the shoulders, place you on the board. Tie your wrists above your head, ankles strapped below. Your body is crooked. Your joints don't move like they used to. One guard comments on it, laughs. The other cranks the wheel. Slowly, too slowly. Your body stretches, inch by inch. Your back arches. You feel the pop in your hips, the tug in your shoulders. Then the snap. It's not loud, more like a whisper, but you feel it, deep. The spine. A vertebra gives a white flash, bursts in your vision. You cry out, but it's broken. Hoarse, more animal than human. The wheel turns again. Another snap. Your jaw clamps shut. A molar cracks. Pain shoots up through your skull. You think you might die. You hope you will. They stop, just long enough to let you feel it. Let your nerves panic. Your body vibrate with damage. Then they start again. They ask you questions now. Names, locations, events you don't remember. Or maybe you do, and just can't say. You can't tell what's true anymore. Truth bends under pressure. You say things, anything. They write it down, not because it's true, but because it fills the record, satisfies procedure. Your arms are longer now. You can feel the pull in your sockets, the trembling of ligaments past the point of no return. You will never lift anything again. You will never run. They don't care. The wheel stops. You're unstrapped, dropped. Your body hits the floor like wet rope. No strength to scream, no energy to crawl. They leave you there, twitching, weeping, stinking of blood and old cloth. Later, the priest comes, candle in one hand, Bible in the other. He kneels beside you and whispers, "If you confess fully, the pain will stop." But you already did. It never stops. You don't know how long you lay there. The torchlight comes and goes. Sometimes they feed you. Sometimes they forget. You stop caring. Your arms are ruined. Your legs too. Movement feels impossible. Like your soul is still trying to stay inside your body, but your body is giving up. The priest returns. Again. You start to hate his voice. Soft, forgiving, always offering a choice that isn't a choice. Confess and be spared, he says. But spared doesn't mean freedom. It means less pain, maybe a quicker end, maybe a cell with straw instead of stone, maybe a rope instead of a fire. You tell him things, half true, half lie, names from dreams, people you hated, faces that blur together. He nods, writes it down. He never looks at you. You are not a person anymore. You are evidence. Outside your cell, you hear whispers. New prisoners. They're younger. You can tell by the way they scream. One is a boy, maybe 13. His voice cracks mid-cry. The other is a woman, older, angry. She shouts curses in Latin. You feel a flicker of pride. Then it fades. They'll crush her too. Everyone breaks. The guards return. You've lost the strength to flinch when the door opens. You hope it's the end, but it's not. This time they don't carry iron or rope. They carry mice, a brass pot, some glowing coals. You know the story. Everyone does. The rat pot. They lay you on your back, strap your wrists. your legs, expose your belly. You try to scream, but your lungs are thin, ragged. They place the pot on your abdomen. Inside, a single rat, frantic, hungry, panicking. Then they shovel in coals. The heat rises. The rat begins to scratch. At first it claws the pot walls, but the heat grows. It wants out. It can't, so it does what anything would do. It digs, not through metal, through you. The pain is indescribable, a cold kind of agony, sharp and burrowing. You feel the teeth, the pressure, the tearing. You arch, you thrash. Blood wells up from inside. Your vision pulses black and red. You don't remember what you say, just that you say something. They stop the rat, not out of mercy, out of efficiency. They have what they need. You're dragged back to your corner, trailing blood. The pot leaves a circular brand on your stomach, dark and blistered. Days pass, or hours. You vomit, you sleep, you twitch when shadows move across the wall. You've begun to hallucinate. You see your mother's face in the cracks. You speak to God. He doesn't answer. You ask for the devil instead. He doesn't either. No one wants you. You are beneath even them. You wake to cold water, a bucket dumped over your head. Your skin shrieks at the shock. You cry out. It hurts to cry. Everything hurts. The priest is back. So is the inquisitor. This time, they don't ask. They tell, you will confess. In public, you will wear a garment of shame. You will recite your sins. You will thank the Holy Church for your purification. You will kiss the cross. Then, maybe, they'll kill you. You nod. Not because you agree, because it's the only way forward. Your legs barely hold you. You are carried outside into daylight. You forgot how bright it was. The sun burns your eyes. The crowd is already there. They've gathered like it's a festival. Children, old men, people you knew. You are led up to a platform. You're dressed in rags painted with flames and demons. They say it's symbolic. You look ridiculous. No one laughs. They watch in silence, curious, cold. A priest announces your sins. Some are real, most are not. Then you speak, or try to. Your voice is sand, but you say the words. You thank your torturers. You praise the holy office. You renounce the devil. You weep. They applaud. The inquisitor nods. You've done well. They bring the rope. Tie it gently around your neck. Not tight, not yet. The priest offers you a final blessing. You don't hear it. You're watching the sky. It's the last beautiful thing you'll ever see. They let you live. That's the first horror. You expected death, begged for it in your own way, but instead, they throw you back into the cell. No rope, no fire, just stone, just time. Your body is barely whole. Every movement is a gamble. You're not healed, not recovering. You're decaying, slower than a corpse. Your mouth tastes like rust. Your skin feels alien. When you blink, your eyes feel full of dust and ash. Outside, the world continues. You can hear it. Carts rolling over cobbles, distant laughter, bells tolling for mass. Life carries on. Without you, within these walls, you are nothing but a ruin. And still they're not done. They bring her in the next day. You don't see her at first. You hear her, young, not screaming, whispering, pleading, then sobbing. A girl, 15, maybe 16, the cell across from yours. You don't know her name. Doesn't matter. You hear everything. The threats, the accusations, the prayers. She still thinks they'll listen. Still thinks she can explain. You know better. You try to warn her, a whisper through the stone. But she doesn't respond. Maybe she doesn't hear. Maybe she doesn't believe you. They come for her at night. Her screams shatter whatever part of your mind was still intact. You wonder if that's why they brought her, to make sure you don't forget. The torture you survived isn't a memory now. It's a chorus. The whole prison sings with it. Iron against bone, cloth against throat, the crackle of fire, and underneath it, the voices of the broken. You stop sleeping, you can't. When you close your eyes, your mind replays the rack, the cradle, the rat. Sometimes you remember it from outside your body. Sometimes you're watching from above. But sometimes, worst of all, you remember it as someone else, as the one turning the wheel, holding the iron, smiling. Your body doesn't heal. It scars. Infections begin. You feel them, soft heat in your legs, swollen joints, red streaks rising up your thighs. You know what that means. The rot is coming. One day soon, you'll die of fever. But not yet. They give you vinegar, bread crust, something to keep you just alive enough to feel it all. You wonder if this is penance or punishment, if they think this is justice, or if justice died long ago and this is just procedure. The priests don't look at you anymore. The guards call you, you've become furniture in your own damnation. And then they bring the mirror, just once. Carried by a monk in silence, held up in front of you, like a holy relic. You don't recognize what you see. Not your face, not your body. The burn has warped your features. Your eyes are swollen. One of them is milky. Your lips are cracked wide open. Your teeth, those that remain, are black at the roots. Your arms look too long. The rack did that. You're no longer a person. You're a warning, a tool, a victory. The monk takes the mirror away. Doesn't speak. You think that was your absolution, a chance to see what they made of you. After that, silence. Days pass, then weeks. No more questions, no more pain, just waiting. One night, a man visits, not a priest, not a guard, a noble, well-dressed, clean, perfumed. He stands over you and says, "They found another, a better one. You're no longer needed. You don't understand what that means." He places a coin in your hand. Why? You can't even hold it, but he says it's payment for your service, for your soul. Then he leaves. The next day, you're gone, dumped outside the city gate, wrapped in a shroud, alive, forgotten. You've forgotten your name, not because of trauma, because no one said it in weeks. It fades like smoke. People pass by your body without calling it. You lie just outside the city walls, wrapped in rags, left on a pile of refuse like a torn sack. A dog sniffs you, doesn't bite. Even it knows you're more dead than alive. Your breath rattles. The sky spins above you. You have no direction, no purpose. You are no longer accused, no longer imprisoned. You're just discarded. They didn't kill you. They unmade you. Your trial was never about guilt. It was a ritual, a sacrifice. And now that it's done, they've tossed your carcass back into the world, as if to say, this is what happens. You can't walk. Your legs respond like wet branches. So you crawl. Each movement is a scream inside your body. The joints don't fit right anymore. The muscles don't pull evenly. One arm's longer than the other. Your spine is crooked. You're a puzzle forced into the wrong shape. People see you on the road. Some look away. Some laugh. A child throws a stone. It hits your shoulder. You don't react. You don't even flinch. That part of you is gone. Eventually, someone gives you bread, not from kindness, just to make you leave. You sit under a bridge and eat it slowly, like it might vanish if you chew too fast. Rain starts. You don't move. You don't care. You're already drenched with the inside of yourself. You begin to hear things. Not voices, memories, the voice of the priest asking about demons, the inquisitor's whisper. Pain reveals truth. They echo through your skull like wind through an empty chapel. You remember what they made you say, the lies you told, the people you named. Did they suffer too? Did they die in your place? You'll never know. Maybe that's mercy. Maybe not. Your conscience is no longer whole. It's been hollowed out piece by piece until what remains is only instinct, hunger, cold, sleep. And even sleep doesn't come easily anymore. When it does, it brings dreams, and the dreams bring the rack. Weeks pass, or months. You lose track. You become one of the faceless poor. Another wraith shuffling near the edge of the market, eyes down, hands out, lips cracked open to beg. People talk around you like you're furniture. You hear things. The trial of a merchant's son, the burning of a midwife, a noble accused of heresy, quietly vanished. The machine keeps turning. The priests keep blessing it. The crowd keeps watching. No one stops it. Why would they? It's safer to look away. You would have too once. You understand now. Everyone is one accusation away from being you. Then one day, someone calls your name. You don't react at first. It doesn't register, but they repeat it. Again, a woman. You turn. Slowly. The name comes back like a jolt of heat in frozen skin. She stares at you. Her eyes widen. She covers her mouth. It's you, she said. I thought you were dead. You want to speak, but the words crack in your throat. She kneels. She takes your hand. You flinch, not from pain, from shock, from contact. She's crying. They said you were a witch. They said you confessed. You don't answer. What could you say? That it wasn't true, that it doesn't matter. The only truth that matters is the scar under your jaw. She takes you home. Not yours, hers. She feeds you, washes you, tries not to stare. You sit by her fire and listen to the wind. You don't cry. You can't. There's nothing left to release. But you feel something else. Not hope. Not peace. Just the quiet weight of survival. You lived through what should have ended you. And that, in this world, is its own kind of sentence. Still think you'd survive. The nightmares don't stop. Not even in a real bed. She gives you blankets, a fire, a roof that doesn't leak. And still, you wake soaked in sweat, gasping, clutching your chest like something's inside you trying to get out. You don't scream anymore. You've learned to keep it silent, but your body remembers. The stretching, the heat, the gnawing. You wake up with phantom pain in your legs, your back spasms, your jaw locks mid-sentence. She watches, helpless. She asks if you want to talk. You don't. Talking makes it real. You'd rather pretend you're just sick, just tired, not broken, not damned. You try to help around the house. You sweep, badly. You carry buckets, slowly. You tend to the garden. Your hands are weak, your balance off, but it feels good to move. She says nothing about your limp. She doesn't flinch at your scars. That makes it worse. You know she sees them. You know she's trying not to. One night, she finds you outside, sitting in the dirt with your hands shaking. You don't know why they're shaking. You're not cold. You're not crying. She sits beside you and just listens to the silence. That's the kindest thing anyone's done for you in months. Word spreads. People whisper that you're alive, that you returned, that you must have confessed, that you must have deserved it. They don't say it to your face. They don't need to. Their eyes say it for them. You're marked now, not just by the scar, but by something deeper. The stink of survival. You carry it like a plague. Even the kind ones keep their distance. You try to go to market. You feel the stares, A boy points. A mother pulls him away. You hear the word under their breath: heretic, witch, liar. You're nothing to them now but a reminder, a warning, a shadow that didn't vanish like it was supposed to. She defends you, says you're innocent, says you were framed, but her voice doesn't carry far. The priests don't speak of you. They don't need to. Your silence is the message. Your body is proof. Confession is inevitable. They don't want martyrs. They want examples. You were the perfect one. The girl down the road is accused next of reading, of mixing herbs, of refusing a suitor. You know how this ends. You know what they'll do. You know she won't survive. And yet, you say nothing. You can't. You're afraid. Not for yourself, for her. Because if you speak and they listen, they'll come back. For you. Again. One night, the girl knocks at your door. She's pale, eyes wide. She knows what's coming. She wants to run. She wants help. You look at her and you see yourself, not as you are now, but as you were before the screams. Whole, terrified, still able to hope. And for a moment, you want to save her. You want to be brave. You want to say yes. But instead you say, I can't. She nods. Slowly, leaves without another word. You watch her disappear into the dark. You sit there for hours, unmoving, until the sun comes up and the bells ring for another public penance. You don't go. Weeks later, they find her body near the river, bound, bruised, throat purple, sewn. The church says nothing. The villagers say less. You sit by the fire that night and stare into the flames. You try to feel guilt. You try to feel anything, but all you feel is heat. Familiar wrapping around your chest, your arms, your legs. The fire doesn't burn you. It welcomes you. You realize they didn't just torture you, they changed you. And the worst part is, you survived. The seasons change, but time doesn't move. Not really. You watch the leaves fall, rot, disappear under snow. You count the hours in footsteps and clouds. You're outside more now, but not present. People pass. Life resumes, but you're in between. Alive but not returned. A husk. A Whitney. You've learned to smile when spoken to. Nod when asked things. But inside, there's nothing. No rage. No grief. Just weight. Like a stone sunk too deep to lift. They took something from you. Not your body. Not your pride. Something older. Whatever let you believe the world made sense. You begin to notice things. Small details. A rope hanging from a barn rafter. A boot print in ash that doesn't match any man's stride. A chicken coop door left open 3 nights in a row. You know what it means. Someone's being watched. Someone's marked. The signs are subtle. They always are. You see the way the priest lingers too long at the widow's fence. The way he blesses her water, not her hand. You hear the word counseling, and it curdles in your ears. You remember the pattern. First kindness, then questions, then ropes. You think about warning her, but you know how that ends. You go to the chapel, just once. You stand outside it for a long time, staring at the door. Your hands sweat, your knees shake. But you go in, not for confession, not for prayer, for memory. You want to see if the air still stinks of incense and blood. It doesn't. It smells clean, scrubbed like it was never a place of screams. The priest sees you, the one who watched you burn, break, bend. He greets you like a brother, like nothing happened, like you didn't sob at his feet, begging for water. You nod, you smile, and you leave before the bile reaches your tongue. Back home, you begin writing, not letters, Not accusations, words, fragments, the names of the others, the faces, details they'll try to erase. You scratch them into wood, into walls, into your own skin, if you have to. Not to remember, to warn. If someone finds you later, long after your body is dust, they'll see you weren't just a victim, you were a witness. That's your rebellion now. Not fire, not vengeance, memory. In a world built on forgetting, remembering becomes resistance. You never say it aloud, but it lives in your hands. Every scar is a record, every limp step a story. Then one night, it happens again. New guards, new torches, another knock at another door. You watch from the shadows as they drag a man into the square. You don't know him, doesn't matter. He's tied, beaten, thrown to the mud. Accused, denounced. Same script, different name. The crowd watches, no one moves. You feel the heat rising in your chest. Not fear, not pity, something sharper, like a blade turning in your ribs. He looks at you, just once, through swollen eyes, and you know he knows what you are. A survivor, a coward, a ghost. He doesn't blame you. That's what hurts the most. You don't sleep that night. You sit beside the hearth and stare at your hands. You think of the rat, the cradle, the wheel, and you think of him, of how his mouth was too bloody to scream, of how yours wasn't. You survived what was never meant to be survived, but survival, you've learned, isn't living, it's haunting. You walk through the world like smoke, seen but untouched. You are the echo of every scream. No one answered. Still think you'd survive. You decide to leave. Not with ceremony, not with a speech or a goodbye. Just a quiet gathering of what little you have. A blanket, a knife, a crust of bread. You leave before sunrise. She doesn't stop you. She knew this day would come. You don't say thank you. You don't say anything. Not because you're ungrateful, but because gratitude feels too small, too civilized. What you owe her is not repayable. She sheltered a corpse and waited for it to start breathing again. Maybe it never did. Maybe it never will. The road is empty, just like before. But this time, you walk upright. Your body still aches. Your gait is still wrong, but you move with direction. You don't know where you're going, just away, away from the town, away from the echoes, the priests, the eyes. You pass through villages. Some greet you, some don't. You lie when asked where you're from. You say nothing about trials or iron. No one wants to hear that story. No one wants to know how close they are to it. You can see it in their faces, the same fragile comfort you once wore like armor. You don't blame them, not yet. But the signs are everywhere. You see another town square where the scaffold still stands. Ropes coiled like sleeping snakes. Ash stains under the cobblestones. A cart filled with shackles beside the church. No one speaks of it. It's just there, part of the scenery, and in every inn, every tavern, every little chapel, you hear the same words whispered under breath: heresy, purification, cleansing. You know the meaning. It's not metaphor. It's wood and bone and heat and blood. You sit in silence and let it wash over you. They think it's history. You know better. It's prophecy. Just with a rotating cast, you make it to the coast. A fishing village, wind-worn and half-forgotten. The sea roars like judgment, endless and full of hunger. You sit on a rock and watch it for hours. You think about what it would feel like to walk into it, let it take you. Not out of despair, out of exhaustion, but you don't. Not because you're afraid, because you're not done. You know what's waiting inland, the next village, the next name, the next pyre. You know what's growing inside the walls of every parish. It's not faith, it's control, and it feeds on silence. The kind you know too well. You begin to speak, quietly, in corners, by fires, in kitchens where the shutters are drawn. You tell some of your story, not all, just enough. You say what happens when accusation becomes ritual, when punishment becomes ceremony, when confession is forced and mercy is measured in pain. Some listen, some don't. A few laugh, a few weep. But the story plants itself like a seed. And sometimes, later, you hear it retold, wrong, reshaped, dramatized, but still alive. That's enough. Stories are dangerous. You've learned that. So now, you use yours like a blade. Slowly, quietly, deeply. You're not healed. You never will be. The damage isn't just on your body. It's under your fingernails, behind your eyes, inside your bones. But you're no longer hiding. You're not silent. You carry what they gave you. The scars, the limp, the ghost of your own scream, and you let it become warning. You tell them, this is what they do. This is how it ends. This is what survival costs. You start to find others, not many, but enough. People who flinch the same way you do when a door slams. People who speak in fragments, who carry their left arm too carefully, who never look priests in the eye. Some wear gloves even in summer. Some drink until the world stops spinning. You recognize them by the quiet. Survivors don't shout. They listen. They wait. They know what it means to lose your voice and be forced to scream anyway. They gather in corners, in barns, in cold stone rooms where the rats are fatter than the children. And there, in the dark, they speak. They don't call it rebellion. That word is too clean, too proud. This isn't war. It's a witness. They write what happened. They draw it. They mark the names of the accused in chalk on cellar walls. They map the sound of the rack's creak, the number of turns it takes to dislocate an elbow. They describe the look a man gives just before he breaks. You see yourself in those stories, not always literally, but in the shape of the silence between them. The truth they can't say, but still carry. You add your own, not everything, just the part that still burns when you sleep. One man, older than you, has no tongue. They took it for blasphemy. He speaks with his hands now. You understand him perfectly. He touches his scars when he's angry, taps the floor when he's afraid. You tell him things you don't tell anyone, like how you still feel the rat under your ribs, how you forget what your voice used to sound like. He nods. He's heard worse. He's lived worse. You ask him once if he ever thinks about revenge. He shakes his head, then signs. I think about prevention. It sticks with you. Revenge is just another scream. Prevention is silence broken on purpose. But even silence has a price. One night, the barn where you meet burns. Not all escape. You do, barely. Smoke stings your eyes. You cough black for hours. You don't know who betrayed you. Doesn't matter. You scatter, regroup in a town 3 days away. Smaller, poorer, meaner. You start over. New faces, new stories, same work. You whisper truth into hungry ears and hope it sticks. You're not trying to save the world. You're trying to save one person from becoming what you are. Sometimes it feels like enough. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's the only thing that still feels real. One woman, barely 20, asks why you keep going. You don't answer right away. Then you say, because they wanted me to disappear. She nods. She doesn't ask more. She knows. You watch her take her place beside the fire. Tell her story. She's nervous. Her voice shakes. But she says it anyway. That's how it spreads. Not through armies. Not through banners. but through testimony, the kind that leaves bruises, the kind that shivers when spoken, the kind that refuses to go quietly. You sit in the back and listen. For once, you don't feel alone. There are nights when you still wake up choking, when the smell of heated iron comes back, when your body clenches before your mind remembers where you are. But they pass. Not quickly, not fully, but they pass. You breathe, you sit up, you drink water, you speak a name, sometimes your own, just to hear it out loud, and you go back to sleep. Not because you're safe, but because you've decided that being afraid won't be the last thing they did to you. You hear rumors, whispers riding carts, tucked into bread loaves, murmured between doorways. A bishop has been arrested, a torturer found dead, face crushed, tongue removed. Somewhere, an inquisition chamber burned to the ground. You don't believe all of it. Hope makes fools of people, but some of it, some is true. You can feel it, like a shift in the weather, like a crack in the wall that wasn't there yesterday. The machinery of pain is still grinding, but it stutters, just a little. For the first time, someone on the other side flinched. You hold on to that, not as a promise, as a crack, a splinter, a tooth lost from the beast's mouth. You don't know who lit the fire. You don't need to. Somewhere, someone broke the cycle, not by speaking, by refusing, by disappearing, by striking back. You don't cheer. You don't celebrate. You sit by the fire that night and think about how long it would take for this spark to reach the rest of the world. Years, generations, maybe never, but the silence isn't total anymore, and that's how rot begins. In quiet, you would know, you lived it. One day, in a village you've never seen before, a man grabs your arm. His grip is firm, but not violent. You freeze. He looks into your eyes like he knows something. He says nothing, just nods once, and walks away. Later, you find a scrap of cloth left on your doorstep, a symbol sewn into it, not a cross, something older, a wheel cracked in two. You've never seen it before, but you know what it means. It means you're not the only one who remembers. The others, the ones like you, have begun to find each other. You carry the cloth with you, not as a flag, not yet, but as a tether, a mark, a silent defiance. There's no leader, no name, just survivors. Each one shaped by a different horror, but all born from the same fire. Some still limp, some still scream in sleep. Some no longer speak at all, but they move from town to town, planting truth like seeds in cracked earth. You watch the stories ripple outward, and while the priests still hold their pulpits, their words feel thinner now, like they're yelling into wind, like they know something is unraveling. But the church doesn't fall. It adapts, it sharpens, it trades iron for ink, fire for doctrine. They begin calling dissent a disease, a madness. They say those who question are lost to demonic influence. And the people, tired, hungry, desperate, listen, because fear is easier than doubt, because it's safer to believe the whip is mercy, the rope is justice, the scream is salvation. You feel it starting again. Just beneath the surface, the same rhythm, the same hunger, the same mask, new face. You've seen it too many times not to recognize it, so you begin writing again. Longer, sharper, you describe the rack with painful detail. You describe the man who smiled while turning the wheel. You name the prayers they said while branding your skin. You write it all, not as history, but as warning. You leave the pages in libraries, in barns, in the cracks between church pews. You know most will be burned. You write them anyway, because one might survive, and that one might save someone. That's all you can hope for now. You don't think of yourself as brave, you think of yourself as awake. That's the real curse, isn't it? Seeing it all, the game, the script, the rituals, dressed up as righteousness. Most people still live in the dream. They hear the bells, they bow at the altar, they mutter prayers before they sleep. You used to, until your body became proof that faith can be weaponized, until your pain became someone else's evidence. So no, you don't feel brave. You feel used up. But that doesn't stop you from moving. One winter, you find a town where the pyres are fresh. Black ash still stains the snow. The people are quiet, not grieving, hollow. You stay only 2 nights, long enough to carve a message in the stone wall behind the chapel. This was not justice. This was obedience. You leave before anyone sees. It's a small act, stupid, maybe, but it feels like scratching your name into history's skin. A refusal, finish. A refusal to let the fire be the final word. Sometimes, refusing is the most sacred thing you can do. You begin to notice fear in the eyes of the holy. Not all of them, but some. A monk in red, who flinches when he sees your face. A bishop who shortens his sermon when you step inside. They don't know what you are, not fully. But they sense it. A presence that doesn't kneel, a scar that doesn't fade. You represent everything they swore could be purified. And yet you remain. That contradiction terrifies them. You learn to use it. Your silence becomes a blade. Your limp, a sermon. Your breath, a heresy in motion. You meet a woman in the highlands. No name, no past. She keeps a ledger of the dead. Dozens of names, places, dates, buried under code. She's been tracking the Inquisition's movements. She knows which towns are next. She shows you a map, not one drawn by kings, one etched in pain. You add your own marks. She never smiles, but when you hand her your notes, she touches your hand and says, "Good." It's the first warmth you've felt in weeks. Not love, not healing, just recognition. That might be stronger than either. Together, you start something. Not an army, not a revolt. A memory, a chain of stories passed hand to hand, like contraband. Whispered warnings, secret signs scratched into stable walls. You teach people how to spot the first signs of a purge, how to flee, how to hide, how to remember. You become a myth to some. The burnt one, the scar walker. Some don't believe you're real. That's fine. It makes it easier to move. And for every 5 who laugh, 1 listens, 1 prepares, 1 survives. You sleep outside now, safer that way. The stars remind you that history is small, and you are smaller, but not meaningless, not anymore. You left the fire, you carried it with you, and now, even if you vanish tomorrow, something remains behind. A mark, a breath, a voice that says, "It happened. I was there. I endured." A child finds you one morning, barefoot, face smudged with ash, holding a doll made of corn husk. She doesn't speak, just stares. You look away first. Her eyes are too clear, too unbroken. She offers the doll. You shake your head. She pushes it into your hands anyway. You take it, not out of politeness, out of confusion. No one gives you anything anymore. She runs off without a word. You sit for a long time, turning the doll over in your hands. Simple, fragile, untouched by fire. You feel something inside you shift. Not hope, just warmth. The faintest flicker. That night, you pass through a village where the church doors are bolted shut. A local tells you they found the priest in his chambers, hanged with his own belt. No one cried. You say nothing, but in your bones you know he was one of them. And someone else, someone invisible, finally chose to act. The fire's still there. You can smell it. It doesn't blaze. It simmers. It waits. The people don't praise the church anymore. They pretend. They mumble through prayers like forgetting a line in a bad play. They're scared, yes, but something deeper too. They're tired. You ask for water. A woman brings it in silence. She recognizes the scar on your face, but says nothing. Later, she slips a note under your door. One word, safe. You keep it, not because you believe it, because you want to. In that same town, a man with missing fingers tells you his daughter was taken last spring. She confessed to nothing. They made her confess anyway. He didn't watch. He couldn't. You ask what he'd do if they came again. He looks you in the eye and says, "This time I'll burn the church down first." You believe him. Further north, the snows make travel harder. You limp through frozen fields, sleep in caves, chew dried roots, until your teeth ache, but you keep going. Every town is a gamble. You read faces like scripture. Who can be trusted? Who's broken? Who's a whisper away from snapping? Some places you say nothing. In others you speak too much. You lose track of how many times you fled under moonlight. How many times someone's eyes widened as you told your story, not in pity, but in recognition. They thought they were alone. You prove otherwise. You return to one village, years later, and find the chapel burned to the ground. No sign of battle. Just charred stone, half buried under weeds. No one talks about it, but they look healthier, lighter. A boy runs through the square laughing. An old woman sells herbs without whispering. You ask no questions. You stay one night. You leave the doll the child gave you, tucked under a broken beam. It feels like the right place to leave it. A gift returned. A circle closed. You walk away before the sun rises. No one sees you leave. You think of the others, the ones who didn't survive, the ones who couldn't speak, who were buried in shame, in silence, in dust. You carry them in every step, in every story. You are not healed. You never will be, but you are still here. That, in this world, is defiance. That is the victory they never counted on. Your name returns to you in pieces, not shouted, not sung, just felt, in the rhythm of your breath, on cold mornings, in the sound your feet make when they drag slightly across wet leaves. You whisper it sometimes. When no one's around, it doesn't feel like it belongs to you anymore. It feels like something you stole back from a fire. But that's enough. Names can be reclaimed. Even ones they tried to grind out of you between rope and iron. You meet someone who remembers you. A merchant. He saw you once. Before the accusation. Before the screaming. He doesn't recognize you at first, but then his eyes change. You can see it in his jaw, the lock of memory. You wait for the usual reaction. Pity, fear, avoidance. But instead, he says, "You're still alive." You nod. "Good," he says. "We need the ones who remember." You eat together. You don't talk much, but when he leaves, he slips you a coin with a carved line through the center. You've seen that symbol before. You keep it. In another town, a woman stands trial for speaking too loudly about the bishop's taxes. They don't call it blasphemy. They call it sedition, a newer word, but just as sharp. She stands with her back straight, fists clenched, lips bitten raw. You watch from the crowd. You don't know her, but you know what she is. They ask her to confess. She refuses. You feel your muscles tense, old reflexes itching to pull you away, hide, vanish. But you don't move. You don't blink. You want her to see at least one face in the crowd that doesn't look away. She is lashed, not executed. For now, a warning, a lesson. You find her later, behind the tavern, shaking but unbroken. You kneel, offer her water, a cloth, no words. She doesn't cry. She doesn't thank you. But she watches you leave like she knows your story without needing to hear it. That's the closest thing to kinship you've known in years. You don't need names. You have the same wound, just cut at different times. You learn to read the air in every village. The scent of paranoia, the tension in shoulders, the way people say God bless you too quickly. You know when to speak and when to vanish. You write more, pass letters to no one in particular, hide notes in church pews, behind public crosses, under firewood bundles. Some are warnings, some are records, some are just questions scrawled in blood and ink. Do you believe them? You don't know who finds them. You only know they're never where you left them. And every time you see someone stand a little straighter in the presence of a priest, every time you hear a voice call out in challenge instead of fear, every time the whispers in the taverns grow louder than the sermons, you know something's shifting. Not fast, not safe, but inevitable. You were broken to make a point. Instead, you became a fracture in the foundation. The snows come early this year, heavy, relentless. The roads turn to mud, then ice. Villages seal themselves in with straw and prayer. You travel slower now, not because of age, because of wear. Your bones ache in ways that aren't weather. Each step is a tally of past wounds, ankles twisted under the rack, knees burned beside the brazier. You used to walk to escape. Now you walk because stopping would mean rotting in place. You've seen what that does to people. You've seen what it looks like when someone survives the torture, but not the years that follow. You meet a boy in a stable, 12, maybe, eyes too wide, too knowing. He asks if the stories are true, about fire, about metal, about rats. You ask where he heard them. From my mother, he says. She said they did that to her sister. You ask where she is now. He just shrugs. You sit beside him, not like a teacher, not like a survivor, just another haunted thing. You tell him, the stories are true, but not complete. The pain is real, yes, but so is the after, the crawling, the rebuilding, the breathing, the remembering. You don't tell him it gets better. You tell him it continues. That night, you dream of the wheel again, not the turning, the pause between clicks, the moment just before it pulls. You wake with clenched fists, teeth grinding. You try to breathe it out, but the dream doesn't leave. It stays like smoke in your lungs. You know why it came. You stayed too long in this village. You let someone see you. You've broken your own rule. You pack your things by candlelight. No sound but your own breath and the creak of worn leather straps. You don't say goodbye. You never do. But as you pass the chapel, you stop. Something feels wrong. The door is open. It's never open this late. You step inside, slowly. No sound, just the cold. And then you see it, carved into the altar. Your name, not your real one, the one they gave you. Witch, blasphemer, liar. You stare at it for a long time. Not out of fear, out of recognition. They know you're here, or someone like you. You don't run, you walk, slowly, dignified. Because running is what they expect, and you are not what they expect. So you make a choice. Not to run, not this time. You leave the village, yes, but you don't vanish. You go to the next town, and the next, and everywhere you go, you say the name carved into the altar. You say it out loud. You say it like it's yours, and when someone flinches, when someone lowers their eyes, you know you're not the only one still carrying the fire. Outside, the snow has covered your tracks. You move through the dark like breath. You think about how easily it could all repeat, how little it takes to start the machine again. One sermon, one name, one scream. You wonder if it ever stopped, or if it just went quiet while it changed clothes. The faces are different now, yes, but the silence is familiar. The way people look at the ground when questioned, the way they nod too quickly, the way fear is folded into prayer like salt into bread. You've seen this before, you lived it. The body heals strangely, not in straight lines, not with closure. The burns don't vanish, they just stop hurting. The joints don't reset, they shift until the pain dulls into habit. The mind, though, that never heals in full. It adapts, builds new rooms, locks old ones. But sometimes, the doors swing open at the wrong moment. A word, a smell, a sound. And suddenly, you're back on the table, screaming with a mouth too dry to bleed. You don't fight it anymore, you ride it, like a storm, like a memory with teeth. You begin leaving more signs. Not full stories, clues, symbols, circles broken by a single line, a feather placed under a priest's bench, ash smeared across a crucifix. Nothing that screams, just enough to make them wonder. You don't need them to know you were there. You need them to feel it, to doubt, to look over their shoulders, the same way they made you live. Doubt is a knife you place in their hands, and if they grip it wrong, they'll bleed themselves. Let them. Let it spread. In one village, a girl recognizes you, young, face like a moon, always watching. She says nothing, but you see her shadow follow you as you walk. The next day, she leaves a bundle by your door. Food, cloth, herbs for pain. Inside is a drawing, a figure wrapped in smoke, holding a torch. At the bottom, I know who you are. Thank you. You burn the note, not out of fear, out of protection. But you keep the drawing folded tight in your boot, where it touches your ankle like a secret promise. You never see her again. You keep moving, not because you must, but because you can. You walk with your limp, your fire, your memory, and everywhere you go, you breathe just a little louder than the silence they tried to leave in you. Still think you'd survive? You cross paths with another survivor, old, skin like rope. He speaks with a stutter, jaw twisted from a misplaced blow. He doesn't tell you what they did. He doesn't have to. It's in his silence. You share a fire. No names. No questions. Just the warmth and the unspoken knowledge that you're the last of something that never should have existed. Before he leaves, he hands you a torn page from a book. On it, a single line in ink. Truth buried in fire becomes coal. You nod. He disappears into the snow. You keep the page close to your chest that night, like a shield. One day, you find a chapel abandoned. No priest, no altar, just ruins and bones. Children play among the rubble. Unaware, you sit on the crumbled steps and listen to the wind whistle through the cracks. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like aftermath. There's no joy in seeing the instruments gone, just relief. Like a fever breaking, like a scream finally finishing. You stay until dusk, then scratch a message into the last standing beam. No gods live here, only silence. You leave it there, a tombstone, a warning, a beginning. It's been years since the iron touched you, but some nights, your body still jerks like it remembers, like it expects the chain to pull, the crank to turn, the searing kiss of red metal on flesh. You sit up, gasping, fingers digging into your palms, and for a moment, the room is wrong, too warm, too quiet. You forget where you are, forget when you are. Then it passes. Not because you're safe, because you've learned how to return. Survival rewires you, turns fear into habit, turns habit into ritual. You no longer flinch at sermons. You attend them, not to pray, to observe, to listen for changes in tone, which words sharpen, which soften. You can tell when a priest is preparing the crowd for violence. It's all there in the phrasing. Words like cleansing, purity, unity, they come before the fires, before the rope. The crowd doesn't hear it. You do. You remember when those words were knives tucked in robes, so you make note. You slip away early, and later, in the dark, you warn someone who might still be reachable. You find others doing the same, quiet watchers, some marked like you, some untouched, but all knowing. You don't have a name for yourselves. You don't need one. Names are what they used against you, what they carved into ledgers and nailed to doors. Instead, you trade stories, smuggled names, codes etched into bread crusts, and sewn into hymns. You're not rebels. You're not saviors. You're just scars walking upright. But scars don't fade easily. And sometimes scars speak. The movement, if you can call it that, grows, not in numbers, in depth, in silence, like rot under painted wood, like roots under frozen soil. You never meet in groups. You don't draw symbols. You don't chant. That's what they'd expect. Instead, you endure. You speak when it matters. You vanish when it doesn't. You live like a shadow with a voice. And that voice whispers, "This is not over. This is not forgotten." Even if they burn every name, even if they salt the earth, memory doesn't die with the body. In one town, a young woman is taken, not for heresy, for being inconvenient. She refused to marry the mayor's cousin, claimed the church protected her. It didn't. You find her weeks later, released, bruised but breathing. She stares at you like a dog waiting to be struck. You don't touch her, just kneel. Say 3 words. "I believe you." That's all. That's what no one gave you. She doesn't cry. She just breathes. You stay nearby for days. She doesn't ask you to. You just are. Sometimes you wonder what they'd do if they saw you now. The inquisitors, the guards, the men who smiled while you screamed. Would they feel guilt? Doubt? Would they look away? You doubt it. Most would still justify it, still hide behind robes and rituals. But maybe one, just one, would hear your voice and remember what it broke to silence you. That would be enough. The older you get, the quieter you become. Not out of fear, out of precision. You learn that every word has weight, and you've carried enough. So when you speak now, people listen. You don't command, you remember. And that's louder than shouting. You don't tell your story in full anymore. You don't need to. People have filled in the blanks. They've seen your limp, your scars, your refusal to bow in chapels. That's the sermon now. That's what travels faster than fire. You reach a coastal city where the priests dress in silk and the gallows are cleaned weekly. The trials are quieter here. Legal, controlled. You attend one. A young man, eyes hollow, accused of falsifying scripture. You can tell he doesn't understand the game. He's still answering honestly, still thinks truth can protect him. You watch as he's condemned by nods, not ropes, paper, not blood. But the result is the same. He disappears. You never see him again. You leave a message behind, in his cell. Just one word, seen. One night, a child finds you under a bridge. He asks if you're a ghost. You say yes. It's easier. He asks how you died. You tell him, "They broke me into pieces." He nods, like that makes perfect sense. You share food. He hums a song you haven't heard in years, something from before. It makes your chest hurt in a way you forgot was possible. He says he's running away. You ask why. They said I talk too much. You give him a coat, a direction, a blessing. When he leaves, you don't follow. You wait until dawn and burn the bridge behind you. You've stopped counting the years. They don't matter. You track time in ruins, in whispers, in the way fear rises and falls like a tide. You've seen the fire return more than once. Different flames, same heat. But now, sometimes, someone resists. Not always with weapons. Sometimes with silence. Sometimes with stories. A woman stands in a square and recites a banned prayer. She's beaten, but she keeps speaking. And as she does, no one stops her. That's what changes first. Not the power, the crowd. You remember a time when crowds screamed for blood, when people brought children to watch. You remember the cheers when the first crack of bone rang out. You remember your own scream, swallowed by applause, that silence that follows now, when no one moves, when everyone just watches. That's something. It's not victory, but it's not obedience either. It's hesitation, and hesitation is the beginning of the end for men who rule through fear. You pass through a town where your name has become a warning, not a legend, not a hero, just a phrase muttered to children near fires. Don't be like them. Don't get marked. They mean it as caution. You hear it as proof. They remember, maybe not the truth, but something. And your joints ache longer now, not with pain, with memory. You wake and feel the echo of rope around your wrists, not from outside, but from the inside out, like your bones remember the pull, the twist, the surrender. You stretch carefully each morning, not to stay strong, but to stay real, to remind yourself, this body, this ruined body, still moves, still walks, still breathes. You've made it longer than anyone thought possible. Even you, especially you. You start to see faces in the crowd who look like you used to, not physically, spiritually, people balancing on the edge of disbelief, people asking questions in the wrong tone, people standing just a little too straight in the presence of power. You don't warn them anymore. You approach them differently. You listen, because the ones who are about to fall don't need saving. They need seeing. You ask them where it hurts, not if. You already know it does. One of them is a teacher, eyes sharp, voice soft. She tells you the bishop banned 3 books this year. She found 6 more to teach instead. You smile. That's the kind of heresy you love. Quiet, relentless, intelligent. You leave her with a list of names, not people, testimonies, stories that should not be forgotten. She copies them by hand, passes them on. You hear one of them a month later in a town miles away, told slightly wrong, but burning just the same. That's how it works now. Memory is fire. You carry the spark, others spread it. You revisit the place it happened, the original place. Stone, half swallowed by vines, the table gone, the chain rusted through. It's not sacred. It's not cursed. It's empty. Just a room where pain happened once, and then again, and then again. You sit there for hours, not in mourning, in recognition. You touch the wall where your blood once ran. It's cold, dry, but your fingertips remember the heat. You place a single nail on the floor, a gift, a warning, a relic. Then you leave. And as you walk into the next town, hood drawn, breath white in the air, someone leans close and whispers, "You were right. You don't turn. You don't smile. You just nod. Slow, steady, and keep walking." You don't cry. That part of you is long dead. But you feel something like silence, shaped like peace. Not comfort, just completion. The past can't be undone, but it can be outlived. That's what survival is. Not healing, not triumph, just continuation, breath after breath, step after step, a refusal so quiet it sounds like endurance. You're not chasing justice anymore. You gave that up long ago when you realized justice was a word carved by the same hands that held the iron. You're chasing something else now, something smaller, sharper. You're chasing memory, not to relive, to make sure what happened to you, what's still happening to others, doesn't dissolve into rumor or get rewritten into righteousness. You've seen it before, the rewriting, the priests calling torture penance, the crowds calling screams cleansing. You refuse to let it become holy. A merchant tells you of a priest who disappeared in the night. No blood, no fire, just gone. You say nothing. You know the pattern. Survivors rarely take revenge, but sometimes someone else does. Maybe a brother, a daughter, a stranger who saw too much. You don't celebrate, you don't mourn, you just keep walking. Because it was never about punishment. It was about stopping the next one. You've spent years dragging names back into the light. Not to destroy them, just to mark them. So no one forgets what they did with their robes and rings and God's permission. You sleep under bridges now, less often. Doors open more easily. Some towns have changed. You notice it in how women speak, in how old men hesitate before blessing their food, in the way children don't immediately flinch when a stranger asks a question. It's not safety. Not yet. But it's friction. The machine no longer spins freely. There's grit in the gears, and you helped put it there. One whispered story at a time. You keep a journal now, a new one. The last was full. This one is not for names. It's for moments. A smile from someone who used to tremble. A prayer said, without fear. A child who says they want to be a healer, not a priest. Small things, insignificant to most, but to you they're tremors before a quake. You never thought you'd live to see even this. You thought your story would end in a ditch, in smoke, in silence. You were wrong. Sometimes survival is the story. One night, a girl asks if you're a hero. You almost laugh. Instead, you say, no, I'm just someone they didn't finish. She looks confused. You don't explain. There's no way to describe what it means to live half dead for years, dragging your own name behind you like a chain. But you place your hand on her shoulder and say, you don't need to be a hero. You just need to keep going. That, you've learned, is enough. You sleep near the fire that night? The warmth doesn't reach the scars, but it doesn't need to. You've carried your cold long enough that it's part of you now. You don't dream, you just rest. And when the morning comes, you rise without groaning, without flinching, without fear. Still think you'd survive? You started teaching people how to vanish. Not in the magical sense, in the practical. Where to step to avoid echo. How to read a face before it hardens into accusation. How to hide ink inside wax. You never call it training. That makes it sound organized. It isn't. It's survival, passed hand to hand. It's experience carved into instinct. You teach the way a wounded animal shows its cubs how to flinch before the trap snaps. No speeches, no oaths, just scars exchanged silently. Sometimes people ask you for a name.
Not yours.
A label, something to call this thing you've created. This network of quiet defiance. You always say no. Names are how they catch you, how they justify the fire. Movements can be burned, but echoes can't. So you don't give them a flag. You give them tools, words, signals, a gesture that means not safe, a knot that means already gone. The tools spread faster than fire. That's the only thing you've ever wanted. A woman shows you a page she copied from your journal when you thought lost. It's not word for word, but it carries the tone, the rhythm, the ache. She says she reads it before sleeping, and again when she wakes. You don't know what to say. You're not used to being seen like that. Not as warning, but as wisdom. You touch the page gently. It smells like smoke and ink. It's been read 100 times. That's more permanence than any monument. You nod. She understands. The cities are slower to change. Power sticks to stone. But even there, you see small shifts. Guards who look bored instead of cruel. Priests who speak more about love than fear, or at least pretend to. People have started questioning out loud. Not often, not publicly, but enough. The silence is cracking, and every crack is a chance to breathe. You know it won't last. These things come in waves, but you also know how to swim now, and better, how to teach others. You visit a grave, one you made long ago, in secret. No name on the stone, just a mark, a symbol for pain that couldn't be spoken. You place a hand on the earth and whisper, "Still here." You don't expect an answer, but you feel something. Not peace, not forgiveness, just stillness, like the ground remembers too. You stand there until the wind shifts. Then you walk away without looking back. Some ghosts deserve to sleep. Later, you sit by a fire with a stranger who carries a brand on his back. He asks how you made it through. You don't lie. You say, "I didn't. Not all of me." He nods, says, "Then the part that survived must be the part that mattered." You stare at the flames and let that truth settle in your chest. Not heavy, not sharp, just real. The older you get, the less you fear being hunted. Not because you think it's over, but because you've stopped hiding. You walk through towns with your hood down now. You speak your truths without softening them. If someone's watching, let them. If someone reports you, let them try. What can they do that hasn't already been done? What cage could hold what you've become? You're not the victim they hoped you'd stay. You're the memory they tried to kill, walking, speaking, refusing to fade. One town posts your face on a board. A sketch, crude. You stand in front of it for hours, watching people walk by. Some glance, some avoid it. One man spits on the wood. You never learn who put it there or why, but the next day, it's gone. Not torn down, taken. You smile, just barely. You know what that means. Someone, somewhere, is tired of forgetting, tired of pretending the rope wasn't real, tired of kneeling under hands that call themselves holy while they close around your throat. You hear of a priest who fled in the night, another who stood in the pulpit and wept. You don't know the details. You don't need to. These are the sounds of a machine breaking under its own weight. Shame is louder than sermons when it finally surfaces. You wonder if any of them remember your face, your screams, your silence. You wonder if they wake in cold sweats, remembering the smell of your flesh under iron, or if they've rewritten it, made themselves saviors. It doesn't matter. You remember. That's enough. There's a village where people gather every year to share names, not just of survivors, of the lost. Those who never made it out, they write them on stones, place them in a circle. No fire, no prayers, just presence. You attend, once, say nothing, watch everything. A child lights a candle and says, "This is for the one who didn't scream." You feel your ribs tighten. That could have been you, was you, might still be. But here, that silence isn't failure, it's honor. You leave them with a story, not about your torture, not about your escape, about the time a rat in a cage chewed through you. And you learned that survival doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it just looks like not dying. The villagers listen. No one flinches. When it's over, someone hands you a piece of cloth with the same broken circle symbol stitched in red. You nod. They nod. Nothing else needs saying. And then you move on. Not because you're running, because you're carrying something. Still, always. A truth that must be spoken in places that have gone too long without hearing it. A memory that has outlived the fire. You walk like a scar across the map. Not healed, not healing, but here, it's raining when you reach the capital. Not a village, not a town, a city with towers and bells that echo over stone streets too clean to remember what blood smells like. You walk slow. The guards don't stop you. You're no one to them, just another old body, limping through a crowd that doesn't look twice. But you see everything. The way the priests carry their books tighter. The way the statues are polished, but the eyes behind them are restless. You've entered the mouth of the beast, and you don't even need to knock. It's been waiting for you. You don't come here to strike. You come to whisper, to leave marks. You visit the cathedrals. You leave notes beneath pews. You speak softly to scribes, to servants, to children sweeping the steps. You tell them stories, not of fire, but of what came after, of what they tried to bury. Not every ear listens, but the right ones do. And every whisper plants something. Doubt, disgust, defiance. It doesn't take much, just a crack, just a pause. You know how faith collapses, not in explosions, in silence that grows too large to ignore. You walk into a library and leave a copy of your journal hidden behind a volume of sermons. Not the original. That's buried somewhere safe. But this one is close enough. You wrote it by firelight, with fingers that no longer hold steady. The ink runs in places, but the words are clear. You know someone will find it. Maybe today, maybe years from now. And when they do, they'll read what you lived, what was done, what was survived. That's all you've ever wanted, for the truth to have its turn. On your last night in the city, you stand in the central square, the same kind of square where you once screamed, where people like you were silenced while crowds clapped. No one notices you now, just another figure in the fog. You look up at the cathedral. You remember the prayers they made. You say with blood in your mouth. You whisper them back now. Warped, ruined, yours. And for the first time in decades, you don't feel like prey. You feel like proof. You were meant to vanish. You didn't. And as you walk into the mist, cloak heavy with rain, you feel your body begin to slow. Not out of fear, not from age, but from weight. The weight of a life carried through fire and silence and ash, and still moving, still walking, still here. You leave before the sun rises. No fanfare, no final blow, just footsteps. Behind you, the city remains. Tall, cold, cracked in places no one can see yet. But the cracks are spreading. You've seen it before. You've made them before. You smile, not out of joy, out of knowing that even if they build new fires, someone like you will be watching, listening, waiting. With a scar that says, I already lived through worse. You find a cottage at the edge of a forest. No road, no path. Just a place where the trees bend slightly, like they remember someone passing through long ago. It's empty, abandoned. But the walls are solid. The roof holds. You sweep out the leaves, patch the cracks, build a fire with careful hands. For the first time in years, you're not a guest, not a shadow. You're still watching the world, yes. But now, you do it from a place that doesn't move, that doesn't burn. You begin writing again. Not warnings, not records, just thoughts. You write about the way snow sounds when it falls on thatch, about the way your body tightens before sleep, about how some mornings you forget to expect pain. You don't plan to share these pages. They're not for the world, they're for you. To prove that after everything, the rack, the irons, the silence, the hunger, there's still something soft inside you, still something that breathes without flinching. People find you sometimes, quiet ones, not many. Word spreads like wind, uncatchable and full of holes. But the right ones find their way. They sit at your fire. They tell you what they saw, what they fled, what they refused to confess. You don't judge, you don't advise, you just listen. You listen like no one ever did for you. And sometimes, that's enough. They leave stronger, or at least less afraid, and you sit by the fire afterward, watching the flames flicker in the scarred curve of your palms. One boy comes back, again and again. He asks questions. Too many. You answer them. All of them. About pain. About fear. About what to do when your own voice starts sounding like your accuser's. You don't lie. You tell him healing isn't a climb. It's a spiral. You come back to the same wound over and over. And each time, it cuts a little less deep. He nods. Quietly. And one night, when he thinks you're asleep, he cries beside the fire. You don't interrupt. That's part of it. You give him the last of your old writings, the ones you once buried, the ones you thought too raw, too ruined. You tell him to keep them safe, to copy them if he must, to burn them only if there's no other way. He asks why you're trusting him. You say, because someone trusted me when they shouldn't have, and I survived. He holds the pages like they're gold. You don't tell him they're just paper and blood and memory. You let him believe they're sacred, because maybe, in a way, they are. That night, the wind howls, the trees bend, but the roof holds, the fire burns, and you sleep with your hand resting lightly over the place where your ribs still ache. Not from a wound, from memory, a reminder. You didn't win, but you weren't destroyed. You didn't escape, but you weren't erased. You lived. And in this world, that's the loudest defiance of all. The boy leaves before dawn, doesn't wake you, doesn't need to. You hear his footsteps on the frost, the careful way he latches the door behind him. He's not running, he's carrying your words, your scars, your silence that learn to speak. You sit by the fire and don't move for a long time. Just breathe. Slow, deep. You wonder if that's what legacy really is. Not fame, not monuments, just survival passed forward, unbroken. The snow comes heavy that year. You're alone again, but not like before. It's not the hollow silence of forgetting. It's the earned quiet of someone who no longer owes the world their breath. You spend your days gathering wood, stitching pages, listening to the wind whistle through the trees like it's reading from the book of everything you survived. And you let it. You let the world speak back for once. You don't need to fill the space anymore. One day, a woman arrives at your door. Older, weathered. Her hands bear the ink stains of a writer, but her eyes hold something harder, the same steel you carried in your worst years. She says nothing at first, just places a small bundle on the table. A copy of your journal, rebound, recopied, read by too many to count. You pick it up, and your hand shakes. She watches. They're listening, she says. Not all, not enough, but some. You don't cry. You just nod. The world outside still burns. Somewhere, someone is still being accused. Someone else is still being silenced. But here, in this cold, quiet corner, there's warmth. Not enough to fix anything, but enough to keep the breath steady, enough to make space for others. That's what you've built. Not a rebellion, not a doctrine, just a shelter for memory, for pain, for the possibility that the next person might not have to endure it alone. She stays the night. You don't ask her story. You don't need to. The way she moves, the way she flinches when the fire snaps, it's all there. She's been through it. Her scars aren't visible, but they shape the way she sits, the way she watches the door, even when it's shut. In the morning, she leaves without farewell, just a glance that says, "We made it, not whole, not untouched, but still here." You watch the forest shift with the seasons, snow to thaw, thaw to bloom. Time moves strangely when you're not running. You age, you ache, you breathe, and you wait. Not for death, for someone else to knock, someone who needs the truth, raw and alive, handed to them like flint. You stop counting seasons, not out of forgetfulness, out of freedom. The cold comes, and you welcome it. The thaw returns, and you don't brace for pain. You move through it all like a tree that's grown around its damage. Scarred, yes, but rooted. You don't flinch when the wind rises anymore. You just listen. Sometimes you think the wind remembers too, carries pieces of your breath from places you thought you left behind. More travelers arrive. Some stay a night, some for days. They don't always talk about what brought them. They don't need to. You see it in their posture, the way they hold their hands too close, the way they pause before sitting, like they expect the chair to betray them. You offer tea, fire, silence, and slowly, carefully, they unfold. Not all the way, just enough to begin again. That's what survival becomes after a while. Not a fight, but a rhythm. A girl with burn marks on her palms asks you, "Will it ever stop hurting?" You don't answer right away. You could lie, could tell her yes, but instead, you say, "Eventually, it stops being the loudest thing." She nods like she already knew, just needed permission to believe it. You wrap her hands with clean cloth. Teach her how to breathe through the cold. When she leaves, she looks back once. That's more than most. You take that look and tuck it into your chest, like kindling. Letters start arriving. You don't know how they find you. Scraps folded into the seams of firewood deliveries. Notes tucked into boots, left at your door. Always unsigned, always desperate. Some just ask, "Is it true?" Others list names, lost ones, accused ones, the dead. You respond with stories, not answers. Stories of people who broke and still spoke, who screamed and still walked. You know better than to promise hope, but you can promise witness. And sometimes that's enough. The church shifts again, not softer, smarter. They speak less of sin now, more of order, of unity. They wear cleaner robes, use gentler words, but you see the same hunger behind their eyes, the same structure beneath the smile. They've learned that fire leaves marks, that rope leaves martyrs, so they use silence now, absence. They erase people instead of destroying them. It's quieter, but no less cruel. You begin carving stories into wood, not parchment. Wood can't be burned so easily. You hide them in trees, under floorboards, inside walls. You've become folklore now, a half myth passed in whispers. The one who didn't die, the one who saw the fire and walked out carrying names. You didn't ask for that, but you accept it. Because if someone somewhere feels braver when they say your name, then the pain was not wasted. Your hands don't work like they used to. You wake some mornings and they won't close or won't open. You massage the joints, whisper old names like they're spells, and eventually the ache loosens. You've written so many pages, held so many flames, carried so much weight with those fingers. They've become more memory than muscle. You don't resent them. You thank them quietly. They're the reason anything still exists. of what you endured. One day, a stranger arrives without speaking. She sets a bundle by your door and turns to leave. You call out. She stops, but doesn't turn. You wrote this, she says. Her voice is smoke and gravel. You nod. She doesn't say thank you. She just says, I kept going because of it. Then she walks away. You don't open the bundle until sundown. Inside are copies, dozens. Your words re-inked, rebound, passed hand to hand. Smudged, creased, wept on. Alive. That night, you sit by the fire and reread what you once wrote through blood and fever. It feels distant, like someone else's story, but also not. You remember every word, every breath between them. The pauses when your hands shook, the moments you thought you'd never finish. You don't correct anything. You don't rewrite. Let it stand. Let the rawness speak louder than polish. Truth doesn't need to be pretty. It needs to be kept. More people arrive in the coming weeks. They don't ask for healing. They don't beg for miracles. They just want to speak, to say names, to recount the moment they stopped being people and became proof. Some stay a few days. Some can't sleep at all. You light candles for them. Cook simple food. Listen until the words run dry. You don't offer absolution, just presence. That's what you craved back then. Not rescue, just not being alone. And then silence again. The cottage is empty. The forest thickens around it. You go days without visitors. It doesn't scare you. It comforts you. This isn't abandonment. This is growth. You taught them how to carry the fire. Now they're carrying it elsewhere. You think of them lighting candles in other rooms, carving stories into other trees. You imagine a world slowly being rewired, not by revolution, but by remembering. You sit at your window. The snow has returned. The sky is soft and low. Your breath clouds the glass. You close your eyes and listen, not for danger, but for peace. And in that moment, it arrives. Not with trumpets, with stillness. A whisper from your bones that says, you did not vanish. You were not erased. You were not lost. You step outside. The forest breathes. The trees sway like old companions, bowed but unbroken. A fox darts past, vanishing into frost. You smile. You think of all the years you walked without shelter, how you begged the wind for mercy, how every sound felt like judgment. Now the silence feels holy, not like a church, like a truth too deep for words. This is what they tried to take from you. Your right to be still, your right to exist in peace. A traveler arrives near dusk, wrapped in furs, face weathered, eyes sharp with hunger that's not for food. He carries no symbols, no tools, but he carries the look, the survivor's look. He says only one thing before the door closes behind him. I was told you remember. You nod, no names exchanged, no need. He speaks that night, slow, halting. His story spills out in bursts, like blood from a reopened wound. You don't interrupt. You just sit beside the fire and let it burn quietly between you. You wake before the sun, not out of fear, out of instinct, the kind you never unlearn. You stoke the fire, boil water, wrap your joints before they ask you to. Every motion slow, deliberate. Your body is a ledger now. Every crack and scar a record of what was done and what you refused to let end you. You no longer flinch at your reflection. The face looking back is worn, half shadow, half smoke, but it's yours, and you've earned every line of it. He stays 3 days, never asks what happened to you. That's the mark of someone who's lived it. They know the story is written in posture, not paragraphs. When he leaves a pouch of ash behind. You don't ask what it came from. You just press it into the earth. The ground accepts it like it's taken ash before, like it remembers every name they tried to turn to smoke. You say nothing. You don't have to. The forest listens. You spend more time carving now. Symbols, warnings, names. Some real, some invented, so no one forgets there are always more than we know. You don't write for history. History belongs to the victors. You write for the haunted, the hidden, the half-dead, who still wake up breathing. Your words are not scripture. They are scars passed forward, lessons etched in the grain of old wood. One day, someone will find them and feel less alone. That's all you ever wanted. The fire crackles behind you. You close your eyes and hear not screams, but breath, not chains, but wind, not verdicts, but memory, steady and quiet, and sharp as a blade. You are not healed, but you are whole in your ruin. And as the night wraps itself around your home, like an old cloak, you whisper the same question you've asked since the beginning. Not to yourself, but to the world. You feel it coming. Not death. Closure. Not the kind written in books or spoken from pulpits, but the quiet kind. The kind that settles in your bones like warmth after a storm. You've lived so long in aftermath that you almost forgot how endings feel. But this is not an end in fire or chains. This is the end they never imagined for you, still breathing, still speaking, still whole enough to remember. You sit at the edge of the woods one morning, watching frost melt into earth. The light hits just right, and for a second, it looks like the trees are weeping. You smile, not because it's beautiful, because it means the world still moves. The same world that tried to grind you down into silence is still turning, still unfolding, still echoing your breath through the air like it matters. And it does. It always did. A young woman arrives as the sky begins to snow. She carries nothing but a knife and a story. She speaks quickly, afraid that if she stops, she'll lose the courage to go on. You recognize the shape of her wounds, the way her hands tremble when she hides them in her sleeves. She asks what she should do now. You say, "Speak." She asks if that's enough. You say, "It has to be." And she speaks, and the silence breaks around her like glass. You give her your last copy, not of the journal, of the memory, a carved tablet, words etched with care into oak, sealed with wax and ash. She doesn't understand its value, not yet, but she takes it like it's something sacred, and maybe it is. She leaves before the dawn, never saying goodbye. That's how you know it meant something. When they leave without looking back, it means they're finally facing forward. You sit by the hearth one final time. The fire dances low. The shadows reach for the walls, not with menace, with memory. You think of everyone, the ones who screamed beside you, the ones who broke before you, the ones who didn't survive. You speak their names into the flame, one by one, slowly, until you reach your own. You say it softly, like a confession, like a release. You are no longer hiding from it. You are no longer afraid of what it means. Outside, snow falls in silence. Inside, you close your eyes. Your breath slows, but doesn't stop. You have more time, not much, but enough. Enough to know that your life, your pain, your voice became something larger than the machine that tried to crush it. You weren't erased. You weren't reformed. You were remembered. And as the last ember glows warm against the dark, your story ends the way it never was supposed to, in peace. Still think you'd survive?